Hi, welcome back to Fatal Dates, my show about finding real sex and love in an unreal world. My guest today, incredibly, is theorist and art critic Boris Groys. I'm so honoured that he has come on the show. I just read his book, Becoming an Artwork, which is about a project he suggests that we're all involved in. Everyone's become an artist, and the art we're creating is ourselves, especially on the internet, and especially for the future after we're dead. We want to arrange how we look. That's the prime work that we're all involved in these days. He says, I want to talk to him about whether it's still possible, therefore, to have human connection with other artworks, given that state of things. I also want to discuss with Boris how I'm becoming an artwork, which I certainly am in the process of doing Fatal Dates, making social media accounts for myself. I want his advice. I've gone quite classic, pared back in my look for meeting Boris today. I can't wait to chat to him. Let's see how it goes. Hi, Boris. Welcome to Fatal Dates. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's such an honor to me. You're a fantastic writer whose work has made a difference to my life. And I can't really believe that I'm experiencing the honor of having you as a date on my show. So I'm very grateful. I've actually spent the afternoon rereading your fantastic book, Becoming an Artwork. I think you say in your book, the narcissistic desire is the desire to look oneself through the gaze of others. And since we're all spending so much of our time manufacturing images for ourselves in the way we present ourselves on the internet predominantly, and spending so much time in the thought of self-creation rather than in the thought of connection with other people and how that might change us or alter the artworks that we're producing for ourselves. So I wonder if you have any general thoughts for me about the possibility of human connection.
People say they don't want to be objectified.
Not everybody says that. The public discourse might say that, but not everybody says that. But sorry, please continue.
No, but there is a kind of widespread discourse. But to disobjectify oneself means to die. Yeah, then my soul leaves my body. And actually what it leaves is precisely the object. Yeah, it's precisely the point of a corpse. So, but I'm already a corpse during my lifetime. Yeah, I'm already this body. It's maybe a living corpse. It's maybe a moving corpse, but it's still a corpse. It is still an object. And being an object, I cannot escape objectification. I can't escape being regarded as an object. But, and that is an aspect of this, talk about the relationship when I agree with Sartre. Yeah, when I agree with Sartre. That we are always objects for the others, and the others as objects for us. Mm-hmm. And it is an ontological condition that we cannot escape or should not escape. That means for Sartre, so that I think it's coming from Heidegger for a certain kind of tradition. He thinks that to be an object means to be used. So the object is kind of seen as a tool.
Yes.
Seen as a tool. And you find it in Heidegger, for example, when he says that we discover things, we discover objects, he doesn't speak about objects, he speaks about things. That we discover things as tools, yeah? So, and that is why I speak about an artwork, because an artwork is not a tool for us. Yeah, we don't use it. So it is an object, but it is not a tool. It is an example, a complicated example, actually, much more complicated than it seems to be. Yeah? And Heidegger had also his difficulties with it. Is an object, maybe we use it. We use it, for example, in the context of art business, yeah, in the context of curatorial practice, in a context of museum, including museum exhibitions, we use the individual artworks, but by doing so, we care for their remaining materially and formally, it is the same, self-identical. So we care for them, and we care for them in a way that we want to keep their material form. We should not forget that, for example, before the French Revolution, and because of establishment of this new category of art, yeah, through the first exhibitions of art in Louvre and then all around the world, in the churches and palaces, paintings, sculptures were substituted by the new sculptures and paintings if they seemed to be obsolete or damaged. There was no restoration, and there was no specific care about, let's say, stability of the material form. What we had before French Revolution, we had the artists as content providers.
Right.
The content was important, yeah. So I painted the Virgin, and if my painting is damaged, it is substituted by the other later version of the image of the Virgin.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that is what I think comes now. Yeah? So we are at the, not quite at the end, but near to the end, to the period of art, a specific kind of care for material stability of an object. What is difference between artwork and normal thing? Artwork is secured and insured. Yeah, when you destroy the normal, let's say, urinoir, that's not a problem. When you destroy the urinoir by Duchamp or signed by Duchamp, you pay huge insurance. Yeah, that is actual undeconstructible because rooted in our economic system, difference between the artwork and the mere thing.
Can I ask, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to ask one question. But here we're talking about non-human artwork, right? And what I've learned from your book is humans are artworks too. Is there a distinction? Humans are not insured. Sorry, I don't mean to derail you, but I just had to say that there.
It's an interesting question because it is not accidentally I speak about French Revolution. Because during the French Revolution, you have the emergence of art as desacralization of the traditional art. So the art is not used in the context of palace, the power representation of the churches, religious representation, but is exhibited for the public, and the public cannot use it. Yeah. So we have this break between the public and the artwork. historical break, because before the French Revolution, you could always use any kind of the artwork, yeah, because they were all in private ownership. And then you create some kind of island, isolated of the normal everyday practice. So people come to a museum, to an exhibition, they can look at the artwork, but they cannot touch them. Yeah? This only looking but not touching, that is the definition of art. That is what art is. Now, if you look at the social and political context of the time, that was a time of emergence of the right of man. And what does it mean that I have rights? That means people can look at me but not touch me. That is a definition of human rights.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. So the analogy between artwork and human body, we see it from the beginning of modernity, so of radical modernity, so from the beginning of the French Revolution. And we also speak about, with Kant, or after Kant, about human being having a goal in itself. And we speak in the same way about the artwork. Artwork can be used because it has its goal in itself. Yeah, it can be only admired and maybe judged, but not violated in its physical integrity.
So interesting. I have to say, on this show sometimes I interview people who go on, for example, internet dating sites. And a common complaint that people say about those sites is often the other people they encounter there do not want to meet up in the real world, that the secret function of these internet dating sites is so that a human artwork can present their beautiful photos, receive the acclaim of the public, receive likes, receive votes, receive offers from lots of different sorts of people who would like to meet up with them. But that's enough. They never need to make up. The messy business of touching has been removed, even if that isn't consciously the awareness of the person who's putting their beautiful photos out there. And this is a frustration. This is a frustration. Am I hearing from you that if you become an artwork, effectively, you cannot have sex with people?
Well, look, Mona Lisa. We cannot ask her if she likes all the people that coming to her and look at it, because it's only a painting. But imagine Mona Lisa sitting there and 1,000 people come and look at it. Right. I think Mona Lisa would say, I would prefer they look at images of me and not at myself, yeah. Because even if people coming to you to look at you, it's exhausting, yeah. It's exhausting. You know, we tend to speak about, there is a certain tendency, yeah, to speak about self. Foucault wrote his books about self and self-care in a context of sex, relationship. But it seems to me that it is not a good field for investigation of the self and the own body. Because, for example, my relationships to my stomach or my liver is much more important for me as all my sexual relationships put together. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's obvious. My real relationship to my body is based on a concept of care and being healthy. That's why Foucault was interesting at the beginning, because he started with this. He started with the clinic, but then he went into the wrong direction with a sexual relationship. And sexual relationship is, of course, always a use. Yeah, I use my body, I use a body of the partner. It is work. Yeah, it is work. It is work like every other work, pretty formalized,
Mm-hmm.
and in a certain way went through a long period of codification and a rule application, and we follow these rules, and we live in a culture, so it's all very formalized. It's not very far from any other works like administrative work or industrial work.
It's so interesting that you say this, because the person I interviewed before you is a woman, a writer called Lottie Latham, who is also a sex worker, a submissive sex worker. She was telling me very clearly her work is work. When I attempted to talk to her about surely bodies, somebody else's body inside you, she told me an anecdote that she worked as a dresser in a shop windows. She had to make sculptures. She had to burn something. She burnt herself. She said, in the course of my daily work, my body is affected in similar ways as if I have sex with people. Can I just say, when I hear you speak, it's so wonderful to hear you speak. It's so wonderful to read your words and to see also how you speak with the exact clarity. Part of the experience, though, of hearing you and hearing what you have to say, it's a very, I use this word with caution, but it's a very materialistic one. I understand the deep implications of that word, particularly for someone who grew up in the Soviet Union. I'm using this word ill-advisedly. I want to ask you, am I a fool for thinking there to be anything other than materiality? You see, my reading of Baudrillard has shown me, my initial reading of Baudrillard, I think, was a massive misreading of Baudrillard. As I have read more, what I've come to understand about that is what he is saying is the perfect crime of our age is the crime of the death of illusion, that what I may feel in wanting to have a connection with somebody else, to want to go, okay, I'll say it, on a kind of mystic plane with somebody else, is an illusion. And really, if we're to be authentic authors, academics, analyzers of the world, we must dispense with illusion because it creates so much damage. But what I take from Baudrillard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is, however, illusion is necessary to pleasure and to live wholly in a materialistic realm where sex is just work. Your closest relationship is to your liver rather than to your wife. Yes, it's all true, but isn't that to drain something pleasurable out of life, even if what I'm draining is something wrong?
Well, there are many things in our life that are unpleasant. For example, also treating your life, treating your liver or whatever your, I don't know, a liver cancer or something like that, it's also pretty unpleasant. So there are many unpleasant things. Reflection and thinking are not unpleasant.
True.
There is a pleasure in reflection, in thinking, in speaking, in writing. So even if you write and speak in a way that is unpleasant for the others, there is a pleasure to say all these things.
I seem to remember that in Fatal Strategies, Baudrillard says, in the end, the only fatal strategy is theory. Is theory fantasy?
Yeah, theory. But, yeah, to go back to your example with sex worker, yeah, if you are used and you become used. Yeah, you become kind of damaged. It is a problem with all kind of work. And of course, when I practice theory, it is also work. It is actually a very exhausting work because what does it mean to make theory? In our world, it means writing on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are sitting in the front of computer, it is not good for your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It is not good for your vertebra. The pulse in general is very bad for your health.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are writing, when you're producing the text and producing theory, sorry for me being so materialistic and so Soviet, but actually Soviet was spiritual, anti-materialist. When I say to myself, now I become to theorize, that means that I put myself in front of computer and begin to produce a text. And I'm waiting for the pain in my back and the general feeling of exhaustion. So you produce your text, and the question is why you do so.
Mm-hmm.
I discussed that partially in my book about the care, in the philosophy of care. It is, of course, self-design. It is, of course, self-aestheticization. That is what especially artists doing. If you come to the now it's different. The artists, when you contact them, they show the CV and send you some access to the website. But in the early time, if you come to an atelier, then artists would say, "Don't look at me. Yeah, look at my paintings." I think it is what Lacan quote very well. Yeah, he said that art production is an attempt to switch the eyes of spectator for the body of the artist to the body of the work. Yeah, it's a kind of a camouflage. It is an attempt to put himself, herself on the screen. So when the people look at the screen and not at the real body. It is very obvious in the case of art, but the same is a theory. Yeah, you can also say, read my books. Yeah, why you look at me? Read my books.
Something I have learned, or something I suspect by reading your books. You don't say this overtly, but a function of an artist today might be about decoding art, decoding a mass cultural experience, which, as you have also shown me, and as Baudrillard has shown me, we live in a totally aestheticized world, and it is aesthetics that has replaced religion, although there is an argument to be made that technology replaces now aesthetics. I have come perhaps to think that theorists are artists, and I certainly, when I look at your work and when I hear you talk to me here, And when I see the magnificent artwork that is Boris Groys, I feel that is it not actually a secret that theorists with their critical eye of deconstruction about what's going on, and you're also a very celebrated art critic, has it not become the truth that it is the art critic who is the artist, because the art critic is untangling the art in the only way that art remains perhaps for us? Are you secretly an artist?
It's obvious, because everybody is.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Has your eye, acumen, intelligence, is that the true place of art today? Is it the interaction of someone as brilliant as you with an artwork? I think I get more thrill, but maybe this is just me, in reading your analyses of art and culture than I often get in looking at art and culture itself, which makes me feel that it is theorists who are artists in our very complicated day and age, which is so suffused with images, we don't know where to look. What I want from an artist, from someone like yourself, is to decode it and tell me.
Well, that is of course true. You're speaking about aestheticization of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I enter the world, for example, the world of today, as you say, is internet and so on. What I see, what is my first impression, is that everything is aestheticized. Everyone is aestheticized. But there's one thing that is not aestheticized. It's me. It's myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I enter the internet for the first time, I find all possible things, but I don't find me. I put my name and I think I do not exist. Yeah. And we see that this fact makes people nervous. That is the beginning of this desire to become an artwork. It is desire to be present, to be also aestheticized, to be also aestheticized.
Well, I would say to you, to exist at all. I think a process that I have been through. So you have had a very distinguished career predating the internet, but an experience of some lowly person like me is as follows. I am a novelist. I wrote a novel. My desire was to be a very secret novelist. I would imagine to have my publisher, the PR people, they can deal with the throngs of the public who are so interested in me and my novel. And I know from having read your texts that the desire, it's not just the desire to show yourself that is, for example, narcissistic. It is also the desire to step back, be secret and private, that is also narcissistic, because there you can knit together more effectively a self-image that you later can come and present. But Boris, just to speak in brief, the cruel awakening that I discovered is that it's not enough to write a novel. Nobody cares about such things these days. Before I wrote this novel, I had no social media account, nothing. My novel, in fact, is about my horror of technology in many ways. No, I would never do something as vulgar as that. And the reality that dawned on me is, in which case no one will read my narcissistically produced novel. That in order to have any audience at all as a new artist, writer entering this space, this already existing internet space, it is compulsory to have some sort of internet presence or to have committed an outrageous crime. If I really wanted to be anonymous, it seemed to me the only thing I could do is a public scandal. Then I wouldn't have to talk about it, but my name would be known and people would know enough to go and buy my book. So I was forced into the strategy of becoming an artwork. And I have to tell you, I have been seduced by it. I am generally speaking a messy looking, intellectual person. But in order to do this show, which is also a promotion strategy ultimately for books I will write, books I'll write in the future, and also a promotion strategy for the book I wrote in the past that I had no presence for and nobody would know anything about. But in order to do that, I've set up social media accounts. I wear, my low-cut top in a way I would never have done before. I make selfies of myself. I put them online. I count how many followers I have. And I become immersed in that world to the detriment of the true work that I began that work in order to promote?
I have no advice. I have no advice because look, if we become autobiographical, I never did anything to be present in the media or some kind of public space. Never ever in my life. I have no social network accounts or whatever. So I made, biographically speaking, zero effort to be present in this sense.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I see that. And you know what the answer is luck. Yeah, I want to say that. So if this presence makes you lucky, yeah, I don't know if it is. But if it makes you lucky, it's a question of luck. It simply happens to you. You are just living. I was just living. And it happened to me that I was asked to do this, that, yeah, write this and that. And I did it, and it was read. And then I was asked again, and so on and so on. I never really tried to do anything, I must say. That is maybe the reason why I never wrote any novel. And I decided very early in my life not to be an artist, because I know and I knew from the beginning that if you do so, you have to sell yourself, because there is a certain kind of market, and you have to compete on this market in a very strange way that people probably do not believe, but in a very strange way. There is no market for the intellectual discourse. You actually, if you develop a certain, as you say, the constructive, whatever discourse, but whatever kind, maybe you compete if you want to get some university position, maybe yes. But I never tried. I took what was given to me. But the intellectual discourse is very badly paid. It doesn't bring you any money. People actually are not interested in doing something that requires a lot of work, also learning and all of that. And they also do not compete in this sphere. So if you just persist in this sphere, so you're just living, I was living, just talking to the friends and so on and so on, then at a certain point in time, you are invited to do it publicly.
What would Professor Bloom say they'll get by reading Shakespeare and Chaucer?
Cognitive power, that is to say, an increase in one's own ability to think and one's own ability to talk on the basis of that thinking. And the next would be rhetorical power, the ability to understand better the uses of metaphor, which according to Aristotle was the special mark of genius in every one of us. But beyond all that, a real capacity for apprehending otherness, for, on the one hand, realizing that we are trapped inside our own mortality, and on the other, that our only hope of getting beyond that trap of mortality is to have some real sense of other selves. We read many books is the ancient adage because we cannot know enough people.
Speaking about my own history, I was very sick as a child. And I never went to a school because I could not go to a school. So 5 or 6 years, I was living in my apartment with my parents in total isolation. I almost never met anybody. In that time, I read a lot of books and literature. I began to read English, French, and German. And so at the end of this period of seclusion, I was relatively well read. And I think retrospectively, it was, for example, a great luck. Yeah, because if you are involved in this kind of activities, it is difficult to read a lot and to think about that. And so this kind of confinement, involuntary confinement, was productive for me. So I write about art, about this as art, but I never wanted to compete with the artists. Yeah, you say that what I do is a kind of artistic gesture, yes, but it's not commercial and not commercialized. It is. Yeah, I don't enter a certain kind of competition. Yeah.
I understand. Part of me wants to say to you, is that your historical experience? Would it be the same if you were in your 20s, in your 30s today? Could you follow the same route? Would you have your own Instagram account posting selfies of the books you had been reading in your isolation? Do you think it is still possible to do that, what you have done, in this age?
I think so, because I know some people who did it, much younger as I am. There is a certain precondition from this. So if I compare my experience with the experience of other people also much younger than me, that practice the same way of life and are okay with that, you have to have a good taste. A good taste in literature, good taste in art, but it's not so important. You have to have a good taste in relationship to people. So you have to have friends who are also intelligent, subtle, and able to appreciate what you are, what you are thinking, what you are saying. You have to look for this kind of people, and you have to be interested in them. And when you are interested in them, they are interested in you. And then because after all, when you look at the world as it is, everything happens in very small circles, very small circles. All this digital revolution happened in a very small circles. A good for me, a good example of that was at the time of 9/11, Bush and Bin Laden had a common law firm in America. So whatever big events coming, when you begin to analyze their origins, these origins are very small. It's very small group. Such was existentialism, such was, if you look at French culture, such was the history of avant-garde, all small groups, people, unknown to the others. I don't think that something changed, because there are some things that never change. A lot of things changing, but there are some things that are constant there. And if you are in a small group of talented people with good taste, it's a very good training, because it's better, in general, it's better never appeal to any kind of audience. You should appeal only to the people who are also writing or who are also artists, because they can understand what you're actually meaning. We have a common terrain and common experience, which is very important. Whereas the general audience that never, so people who never try to write anything or to produce any artwork, they cannot really appreciate what you are doing. They can like it or not, but they can't really appreciate. So if you look at my history, I always was friendly with interesting people, I must say. And I look at the younger people that are not so much known now, but seem promising to me.
Mm-hmm.
They are also friends with interesting people. Yeah, that is still there. In general, I don't believe in this audiences and this global and all of that. For me, it makes no sense. As I don't believe actually on the mass culture, because mass culture is produced by a small group of people sitting in some kind of designer, and mostly people who went through good or even exquisite designer schools, and I don't know. So all of that is illusion. Yeah, a reality is what you want to do and how you want to live. Yeah, do you want to live exciting life in competition? Do you want to go into the mountains and write a book about how you feel there? Do you want to sit home in front of your computer and write how you feel doing?
To be perfectly frank, Boris, I do all of this because there's a novel I would like to write, but I see that it will take me a long time to write it. And as I do this work with Sublation Media, but I have a day job, and I spend my time, my energy, my work in my day job. I get up early in the morning in order to write, but still, it's only a couple of hours every day. It's not the immense amount of work that projects I have in my head would like to be spilt out. It takes time. So there's nothing I would like more than to go to the mountains and write my novel. But how would I eat? Where would I live? But there is a tremendous illusion that the internet and its ecosystems can provide, which is, well, you could make money out of people supporting this podcast, for example. You know what I mean? I could begin to blur. I could, to an extent, prostitute my art by not having the clean separation of my day job, and that in order that I should feel more that I am an artist, that I should be able to give up my day job, that I should have ancillary activities that can finance me in this. That's what I would say. So I like hearing what you say, but I wonder if you have become dematerialized in your saying of it.
For me, money is not material. It's a science system. Money is a science system.
Yeah.
And because money is a science system, there's different relationship to that. Of course, in one respect, I would say I was lucky with my historical time, because I began to act in end of 60s and then 70s, 80s, beginning of 80s in the Soviet Union. And that was an interesting time in a way that the pressure, ideological and political pressure, was actually away. there was some kind of limitations of what you could say officially, but it was a way. And the financial pressure was still not there. It came much later in the 90s. So it was kind of time without pressure because life in the Soviet Union was very cheap, incredibly cheap. Yeah. So you had not to think a lot about your financial situation. Yeah, you could survive if you were ascetic enough. You could survive on almost nothing. That was, of course, good. I don't know if we have a similar situation today. If it is possible to find places of low financial pressure.
Can I ask you, I want to ask you a few things based on different things you've said. The first one I want to say to you is, how is your wife sufficiently, and by, if you do not wish to discuss your wife, then you can just tell me to shut up. But is your wife sufficiently sophisticated and subtle so that when you tell her your relationship with your liver, for example, has more importance than your relationship with her, that she understands what you're meaning and is happy with that situation?
She is very sophisticated and she thinks the same about her own liver. We married as we accidentally met at a forbidden or half forbidden art exhibition in Moscow. And she liked what I said about the exhibition and liked what she said about this exhibition. So our marriage was from the beginning a collaboration and based on very good understanding of what other people think and how they feel. Of course, and when I say you have to do only with people who have the same taste, also taste in art, everything what one, or almost everything what one says about common experience, marriage, and so on, it's actually a fiction, like division of labor, all of that. But what is really important is you have the same taste, because the taste is decisive. If you have the same taste in people, in discourse, in art, and in general, the same taste, you find the same things exciting and the same things do and irrelevant, then we can understand each other in many other aspects. So it is important that you meet and cultivate people with the same taste, similar experience and interests and attitudes. And if you do that, you survive. Yeah, you survive.
Do you think it would be possible to meet such people on an internet dating site?
It's difficult to say because I never did it. I never used any such dating internet site. I actually use only email. Yeah. When I speak about internet and all these things, I'm watching other people. For example, my students to do this or that. For example, I don't know, Instagram or Facebook, things like that. I look at what they are doing, but I do not do it myself. Yeah. Precisely because I don't want to go out of a very close world I'm living in. Yeah. I think I do not need this greater world. I'm not interested in it. The fact that people read my texts is a miracle for me, because I don't know anything about them. Yeah, and because of that, I didn't write this text for them. Yeah, so I don't know why they like it. I also don't know why they dislike.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I live still like in a 19th century, and you think it's not up to date? I would say it's totally up to date, because our time is 19th century time. It's a time of counter-revolution, intellectual regression, celebrity culture, nationalism, wars, free trade, whatever domination of media, whatever characterization of the 19th century you take, it applies itself.
Apart from one thing, the one thing I would say that might be different is I think that, so I feel so lucky to have had a relatively analog childhood. And when I became an adult is when the internet took over. Something, for example, that I have learned from Baudrillard is the process of digitization. In a while, everything will be digitized. So what I'm saying isn't an issue, but the process of digitization itself is an obscene process, because it takes everything from the real world and it puts it online, and therefore it has to be seen. For example, pornography. The obscenity is about the visualization of everything, or at least the illusion of the digitization of everything. The very act of doing this mass societal act of taking what was analog and making it digital is to put everything through a sieve, as it were, to make it all visible, to make it all ugly, and also to give it the illusion of being high definition, that you can go ever deeper into it, ever deeper into it. So in Baudrillardian terms, the obscenity, and what I don't like and seems like something that wasn't a 19th century project, is the absence of shadows. The illusion that we live in a time where there's no shadows, that everything has been put onto the computer, and therefore we can zoom into it ever further, that nothing is hidden from us. And surely that is not something that was happening in the 19th century.
First of all, I like books of Baudrillard very much. I also met him personally.
I saw you having an interview with him.
We had a conversation with him, where I criticized his idea of infinite play of signifiers, precisely speaking about the electricity and this thing. So I remember that.
Erklären oder diese Fragmentation, das kommt zusammen mit der Technisation, mit der Maschine, also diese fraktalen Funktionen, die menschlichen Funktionen, die allmählich übrigens unnützlich werden, weil sie alle in die Maschine projiziert werden, und die Maschine oder die Medien, also das fragmentiert nicht nur den Menschen, sondern die Natur oder das ganze Universum wird einmal allmählich und ganz genau bis ins Einzelne fragmentiert durch Maschine. Und da...
Ja, das erinnert mich gerade an eine wunderbare Geschichte in den 20er Jahren in Russland. Wurde ein Institut errichtet zur Abschaffung des menstrualen Zyklus bei den Frauen.
Ja.
Man hat nämlich gesagt, dass der menstruale Zyklus ist ein Effekt eines falschen Glaubens, unaufgeklärten Glaubens an die zyklische Zeit.
Ja.
Und dieser Glaube ist ja genährt sozusagen von der ökonomischen Zyklen in der kapitalistischen Gesellschaft.
Ja, schön.
Und da eigentlich bei dem Sozialismus sozusagen alles maschinisiert und noch nach vorne geht. Dann muss sozusagen die zyklische Zeit auch auf dieser Ebene überwunden werden.
Ja, natürlich.
Und die Frauen müssen sozusagen entthront werden, zu haben. Ja.
I never understood this difference between real and simulation, because how you can say something is real, something is simulated, I simply don't understand. I never. If you are divine, I think he thought he's divine. If you are divine, if you are God, you can distinguish between real and simulation. But as a humble human being, I'm unable to do so. I see what I see. Yeah? Is this simulation or real? How I know? I know it. It's like to say, do you really feel that? Who knows? So that point number one. The point number two, I went to the West at the beginning of the 80s, so 81.
Mm-hmm.
And some people I met through the 80s were people associated today with the birth of contemporary internet. Yeah, so internet obsessed young intellectuals in England, but more in Germany and in Holland. Now, what they wanted to do, they wanted to go out. Yeah, you know, if you are intellectual, if you are artist, you want to go out. Yeah, you wanted to transgress, you wanted to transcend. And so it was about transgressing and transcending the real, yeah, so offline world, yeah, the world of the family, state, yeah, social position. Now, I never understood that. I was very skeptical about that because I have a mathematical background. I read some books about that, and I realized that actually internet is a space of surveillance. What is freedom? Freedom is to speak, and then you forget what you said, and your partner forgot what you said, and everything disappeared in the scenario. That is freedom, yeah? You are speaking and nothing remains, and then you feel yourself free. When we speak on the internet, we are surveyed, everything is recorded, we can go back to that. It is prison. Yeah?
It is prison.
It is prison. So now we realize that it is prison. People, they were all frustrated communists, yeah, my friends of the 80s. And they always played me that internet is a new world of communism, yeah, beyond capitalism. But actually, it is a prison. It is and the only thing you want is to break out of it. Yeah? So if you say that your children and so on are in it, it's like children also in 19th century in developed European nations. They were living in their schools, in their families, yeah, and they want to go out, yeah. They want to be like Rambo, yeah. They want to go out. He was not from privileged family, but nevertheless, he wanted to go out. So, and I think maybe your kids, maybe next generation, they wanted to go out of the prison.
Yes,
I cannot say where they will be going to, but the experience that internet is not freedom, but prison, is developing relatively fast. And it is so, not because it is used in this way, as a surveillance capitalism or whatever. Internet is a machine of surveillance by definition. It was created to record and follow the conversation. Yeah. In the romantic time, you know, this dreams about calculating machines, yeah, in 19th century. people precisely wanted to create calculating machine to keep memory of the conversations. Yeah, not to let conversations disappear.
Okay.
And now I tend to experience that as a freedom. I think what is freedom is unrecorded conversation, unrecorded thoughts. Not everything that I think I write about. And what I think but not write about, that is a realm, an area of my personal freedom. My freedom is a terrain that is not accessible to the others and cannot be surveyed. So, as I said at the beginning, it's all the problem of strategy. There's no networks, there's no all of that. There's your own strategy, how you invest your own energy, what is the way you're getting tired, what is the way you're getting excited, yeah? And it all has to do with proper functioning of your body, including your stomach, liver, and all of that.
Everyone would like to think that they're the new big thing in town, or they put a stop to history. But what we can see, for example, in the history of art that you talk about so brilliantly in the Total Art of Stalinism, is art history is itself just a sequence of people thinking, well, this is it. Well, this is it. Well, this is it. And I'm so pleased to hear you say that the internet also is, in your opinion, just, or the surveyed internet that we're also sucked into is just how it is. And in 30 years' time, it won't look that same way. I'm really inspired to hear you say that. It's great to feel that things are reversible. You talked about the importance is not designing an audience. The importance is having an authentic group of people that you talk to. And within that small group, things can happen. But I say to you, those people that you're talking to, those are people. They're not artworks, are they?
Some of them were people who succeeded relatively in the art world, like Ilya Kabakov.
I don't mean they're artists. What I mean is they are not self-designed artworks. They are people who have not done that work themselves.
Yeah, there are. There are, because if they wouldn't be able to understand what I'm interested in. Of course, all of them are. All of them were interested in their own image. Yeah. Also, not necessarily artists, but also other people. If you look at the group of surrealists, for example, you see the interest for the people who were able to make extreme gestures in life, not only in art, but also in life. Yeah, that also happened. So if you know people who are interested in their image and use a very subtle and complicated strategies to create it, then you begin to understand what you are doing yourself, yeah, and how it's better to do it. Yeah, you always win something when you look at the people who do the same thing. But what you said about temporary character of everything, that everything in the flow. Yes, I really believe it. I never believed in any stability of anything. Yeah, art is disappearing. Yeah, and our culture is disappearing. We are living in interesting time that our culture disappears faster we die. Yeah, mostly people were dead before the world disappeared, but the world disappeared, but we're still there. That is why so many people speaking about post this and post that. There is a feeling that we survived our cultural milieus, our cultural predispositions, our cultural identities. Everyone speaks about identity, but nobody has it. Yeah. So we're living in interesting time when this transition becomes very obvious, and it is also 19th century because it was time of the destruction, slow destruction of all the European institutions and cultural predispositions that then brought about the 20th century with this explosion of barbaric mass energy. So this, and at that time, this dissolution of the cultural framework of the European existence was experienced as a progress. All the ideas of the progress come from the 19th century. Today is the same. People think they're living in the process of progress. Yeah, the internet, now they have GPT and so on, so on. They do not see this process of the fast dissolution of the traditional framework of the Western society, cultural framework, institutional framework, which is much more interesting and fascinating.
I wanted to ask you, before you said to me, there are some things that never change. You said some things change, but there are some things that never change. I'm interested. What are the things that never change?
It is change. The change never changed. If you look at the concept of utopia, utopia is the end of the change. Yeah,
Right.
when I reach utopia, being it positive utopia or negative dystopia, I always think about it as an end of the change. Paradise is the end of the change. People think about their retirement time as end of the change. Yeah? So utopian expectation is expectation of the end of the change.
Right.
But the change never ends, and all the revolutions is very. Walter Benjamin quote is very well. He says that a revolution is a stopcam. A revolution makes progress to stop. It's not a locomotive of progress. It's an attempt to stop the progress. So this attempt is never successful. The change from the change to the not change or the no change never happened. And that is a consolation. It is a consolation. It is a huge consolation. Why? Because I am in a change, but Baudrillard was also in a change. 19th century was a change. Egyptian culture was in a change. Inca culture was a change. So everything was changed. And so I have a feeling that I live as everybody else. I live as people before me. I live as people after me, because we are all in a change. If I would believe that utopia is possible and the change can be changed to the no change, I would be desperate. But I don't believe it. I believe my situation is like situation of everybody else.
This is going to go out on Sublation Media, which is a Marxist-orientated YouTube channel and publisher. And often the other interviews that are situated on this channel are a lot of people frustrated with the way things are, wanting revolutionary change, frustrated that there seems to be no strategies to do it now. What, if any, advice would you give to my colleagues appearing on this channel, having their interesting discussions, who are trying to work out what is it that we should do? How can change be enacted in such an unfair, unjust society as we live in? Do you have any advice there?
Of course not, but I have no advice for the others. But I must say that I enjoy the change. I don't expect this change to lead to something that I can enjoy. I enjoy or not what comes out of it, but I enjoy the change, and the enjoyment of the change I see as unchangeable in me. It's my personal utopia. So, and it's personal utopia not only of mine, but of many other people. When we look at their writings and we look at their paintings, people think that it will be stable. No, it will all disappear. Capitalism will disappear. You know, everything that emerged will disappear. Yeah, there's nothing, and so it's nothing that will not disappear. Capitalism will disappear, internet will disappear, everything will disappear. So everything that is oppressing you now will disappear. But you don't know what will oppress people that are born after you. You know, as I was in the Soviet Union, the Soviet, I always had a feeling that will disappear. And I looked at all of that, and also some other friends of mine, in a state of nostalgia. Yeah, I already saw it as disappearing. It thought it is oppressive, it dominant. But from my position, it was kind of a romantic ruin already that you look at. And now internet divided between China, Russia, and America, place of the ideological wars and censorship and counter-censorship activities and so on, it's already a ruin. Yeah, so internet is already collapsing. And so I can look at the internet only in the mode of nostalgia.